Hello and welcome to Nutshell Recaps. This video explains the synopsis of the movie, The Equalizer 3. Warning, there will be spoilers, so proceed with caution. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, it will really help our channel grow. A law enforcement officer named Lorenzo Vital is shown in the opening scene traveling with his grandson to his remote winery in Sicily. He begs his grandson to remain in the car while he carefully makes his way inside after arriving. He finds to his dismay that a large number of his goons have been brutally murdered. Entering the basement, he discovers that two of Lorenzo's bodyguards are holding retired U.S. Marine and DIA agent Robert McCall at gunpoint. When the latter inquires as to why he is here, Robert replies that Lorenzo is in possession of something he shouldn't be. Following a brief exchange, Robert murders Lorenzo and the remaining henchmen. Upon exiting the winery, he spots Lorenzo's grandson inside the car and gives the child the order to remain still. But the boy shoots Robert in the back as he approaches his car, then flees quickly. Robert is hurt, but he still makes it to the ferry and back to the mainland. Later that evening, Robert pulls over while traveling along the Amalfi Coast. The gunshot causes him to lose consciousness. After some time, Gio Benucci, a local carabinier, discovers him in this condition and chooses to assist him. He takes him to Altamonte, a secluded seaside village in Italy, where he receives medical care from Dr. Enzo. When he comes to, Enzo tells Robert that Gio saved his life. Additionally, he asks if Gio saved a good man or a horrible man, to which Robert is unsure of how to reply. When he makes an attempt to go back home, Enzo steps in, offering him a place to stay and stating that his wound needs time to heal. Robert receives attention from Enzo, and following 3 days of therapy, he starts to walk with a cane. He goes out one day to tour the town while hiding from the police on the streets. Eventually, he finds himself at a neighborhood cafe, where he chats with Amina, the owner and waiter. Even though he ordered a tea, she gives him their best coffee. Not long after, Robert and Gio meet when Gio brings his daughter Gabby to the cafe for their usual visit. Gio gives Robert his car keys and clarifies that he hasn't examined his bags, while Amina amuses his daughter. Gio adds that he parked Robert's car behind the station and that he may have it back whenever he gets well. The following scene features Robert calling the CIA Financial Operations Group using an assumed name and speaking with Agent Emma Collins. He gives her information on the Sicilian winery and how it has been linked to the criminal drug trafficking through ostensibly legitimate commercial dealings. He then causes the phone to become inoperable after communicating this information. Emma, on the other hand, shares the material with further CIA agents. Over the course of the following several days, Robert explores the town and gradually becomes friendly with the residents. Amidst all of this, he also finds out about the Camorra, an Italian mafia group that intimidates and threatens the residents of the town over their wages and demands constant payments. Robert witnesses a local seafood vendor named Angelo being physically assaulted by a senior Camorra member named Marco Quaranta one day. He gives Angelo a warning before departing, saying he will return the following week to get the money. The criminals then proceed to a sizable structure where Vincent Quaranta, the leader of Camorra and Marco's brother, is attempting to forcibly remove everyone from the area. It reveals that Camorra is constructing new hotels, resorts, and casinos as part of their ambitious strategy to commercialize the area. A wheelchair-bound old guy in one of the construction rooms defies the Camorra gang's orders. The elderly man is therefore left to die after being hung from the window by the gang members. However, Robert insists on assisting Enzo with his everyday duties after they have a nice dinner discussion. On behalf of Enzo, he visits Angelo's shop at the market the next morning. Since Enzo's friend is visiting his store for the first time, the generous Angelo declines to take payment for the groceries, saying it is an honor for him. In the meantime, Emma and additional CIA agents show up at the winery to begin their investigation after receiving a tip from Robert. There, they find bags full of the illegal drugs concealed in a back room along with millions of dollars in cash. Taken aback by the fact that these actions were not anticipated, Emma and her coworker, Frank Conroy, choose to investigate further. Robert asks Enzo why he treated him without calling the police or an ambulance on a wet day as he is tending to his wound. Enzo responds by reminding him of his initial query about whether someone is a good person or a nasty person and how he was unable to find an answer. He asserts that remaining silent was, in fact, a hallmark of a good person. Robert gets ready to leave the town the following evening after getting his backpacks back, but he is stopped by the sound of a bell. He follows them as he sees the local folks running in the direction of Angelo's store. It turns out that because Angelo was unable to pay, Marco and his gang set fire to his store. The residents of the town are unable to stop this dominance. They can only observe. Afterwards, Robert and a few others assist Angelo in tidying up the mess. Gio watches the firebombing footage in the interim and phones the Italian Central Police to report seeing a van outside of Angelo's shop. Amidst all of this, Robert is steadily getting better, integrating himself into the neighborhood and strengthening his bond with Amina. In addition, he continues to experiment with Altamonte's native food, finally settling in. Because of everything, he is significantly more troubled by the Camorra meddling and exerting their power in Altamonte than he had anticipated. Robert is seen sipping his coffee in Amina's cafe one ordinary day when he notices Emma trying to take his picture behind his back. Robert then approaches her and advises that she take a different picture of the scene. Emma queries how and why he knows so much specific knowledge about the actual operations of the winery. He continues, nevertheless, to provide her with a few evasive responses while simultaneously encouraging her to finish the rest of her task. He is surprised when she calls him by name as she walks away. Gio leaves to pick up his kid from school later that day. He gets a call during this period from an unidentified number telling him that Gabby's school ended a little early than the other children's. Gio, feeling worried, asks one of the professors, who replies that Gabby was pulled up by an officer not too long ago. He runs home in a panic, only to discover that the Camorra gang has taken his wife and children hostage. He is then severely beaten by Marco in front of his family as retaliation for meddling with their business. If he meddles once more, the gang threatens to kill his family. Robert witnesses Gio, who has blood stains on his face, leaving Enzo's office in the evening. He inquires about the situation out of curiosity, to which Enzo replies that the Camorra is to blame for many of these occurrences in numerous towns. Enzo says there is no remedy for the problem, like cancer. Robert meets Emma again in the chapel the following day when he goes there. She affirms that Lorenzo Vital's operation was rather significant in and of itself and that he had been on Interpol's most wanted list for 10 years. Emma wonders why he picked her to receive the anonymous tip and becomes suspicious of his motivations. He sidesteps the issue, though, by saying that she ought to be considering the reasons for the smuggling operations that were directed towards Sicily. Emma says she wants to know the answer to her initial question at their next meeting, but she promises to find out soon. Gio and his family are enjoying a nice meal at a restaurant that evening when Marco and his friends barge in. Marco insists that Gio assist them in preparing a boat for their exclusive commercial use. Overhearing their chat, Robert, who is also dining at the same restaurant, asks them to leave the family alone. Marco responds by threatening to keep him away from things that don't affect him. Robert speaks softly, expressing how much he is liking this town and its residents. Then he threatens Marco with dire consequences if he doesn't move his business somewhere and begs him to do so. Robert blocks off his hand and twists his shoulder, causing Macquarie to scream when he continues to disregard the warning. Then he gives Marco the order to leave his gun on the table and lead his troops out of the restaurant. After some time, a furious Marco makes preparations to assassinate Robert by going back in with his goons. But before they can carry out their plan, Robert runs two of his goons over with a vehicle and engages in combat. Marco once threatens to kill him while holding him at knife point. In any case, Robert kills Marco in retaliation by twisting his hand and putting the knife through his neck. Frank calls Emma in Rome the next morning to inform her about the most recent station explosion. It is revealed that there was another terrorist attack connected to the money that was discovered earlier in the winery. Emma is then forced to acknowledge that the Camorra is paying to smuggle drugs into Sicily, so directly funding terrorism. Moreover, she surmises that Naples acts as the main drug trafficking hub and believes that another team may be involved in Naples. Determined to break the chain in its entirety, she starts her inquiry by speaking with important Camorra members. She also asks the chief of Naples' police force for cooperation and access in order to accomplish this. The same police chief is later seen at Vincent's mansion for Marco's funeral. In the process, he tells Vincent that CIA agent Emma is involved and that she is looking into their illegal trades. The statement infuriates Vincent, who is grieving the loss of his brother, and he chops off the chief's hand. He then issues a threat to the chief, telling him to concentrate on identifying Marco's killer. Following this, Vincent delivers the police chief, who has his amputated hand kept in an ice bucket, to the hospital. Emma gets a call elsewhere telling her about the situation involving the police chief. Robert calls her shortly after and informs her of the Camorra's connection to the drug cartel, which is directly related to the previous station attack. Emma's life is unintentionally saved by Robert's call, as it keeps her safe from Vincent's planned vehicle bombing. Emma is taken straight to the hospital afterward in order to receive medical attention. She runs into Frank there and tells him about the Camorra. After telling her everything, Frank reassures her that he will take care of the last procedure. That evening, Vincent kidnaps Gio and his family and makes a threat to shoot them in front of the whole community if the person responsible for his brother's murder doesn't turn up. Vincent shoots Gio in the ear and threatens to kill him with his next shot after failing to get any information. At that moment, Robert requests Vincent to release the prisoners after revealing himself to him. He says he doesn't want to be tortured in front of the villagers, but he is willing to be taken away. Like his brother, Vincent is conceited, so he declines, saying the people around have to see what happens to the Camorra. However, the criminals flee as the town's residents begin filming the incident, stopping Vincent from killing him. That same evening, Robert breaks into Vincent's house and murders each of his bodyguards one by one. A drop of blood on his forehead startles Vincent, who is fast asleep. Suddenly, the glass right above him breaks, but he just about makes it out alive. Subsequently, he seizes his firearm and attempts to get in touch with his departed gangmates. Soon later, Robert comes up to him and makes him swallow a fatal dose of his own medication. When Vincent tries to flee his estate, Robert pursues him. The monster eventually passes out on Naples' cobblestone streets and dies from a heroin overdose. Emma thanks Robert for saving her life as they visit each other in the hospital the next morning. After spilling a bag of cash on the ground, he tells the tale of Greg Dyer, a guy who lost his pension due to a cyber attack. This lets her realize that Robert had tracked down the trail of attack to the winery, where he killed Lorenzo and his goons and took out the precise amount of money Greg was owed. She inquires inquisitively as to whether Robert and Dyer are friends, and he replies that they have only had one meeting. Emma travels to Boston in the ensuing scene to give Greg and his spouse the lifetime earnings. Greg wonders why someone would go to such lengths for a stranger and queries the identity of the kind benefactor. Emma responds, nonetheless, that she too would be curious to discover the cause. Greg is relieved that they no longer have to give up their home when she leaves and instructs his wife to pack everything. Frank gives Emma a gift with a diary and a note from Robert one day at the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. It's her mother's diary, which surprises her greatly. Discovering the whole story, she discovers that Robert is actually her parents' CIA buddy. Residents of Altamont are shown in the last scene celebrating their football team's triumph. Like any other local, Robert takes part in the festivities.